The universe had long feared the might of the Zalorian Empire. Ruthless, technologically advanced, and unchallenged for centuries, they ruled the stars with an iron grip. No species had ever dared to resist them, until humanity came along. When the Zalorians invaded Earth, they expected an easy conquest. Humans were primitive, weak, and divided. Their planet was rich in resources, and their military was laughable compared to the Empire's fleet. The invasion should have been over in days, but the Zalorians had underestimated humanity. The first wave of their attack was devastating. Cities burned, millions died, and Earth's governments collapsed in fear. But humanity refused to surrender. Scattered resistance groups emerged, using guerrilla tactics to slow the invaders down. Scientists worked around the clock, salvaging alien technology and reverse engineering their weapons. Then came the Ragnarok. A warship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It wasn't built in a factory. It was built in desperation, forged from stolen Zalorian tech, human ingenuity, and the sheer will to survive. It wasn't just a ship. It was vengeance given form. When the Ragnarok first entered battle, the Zalorians laughed. One ship? Against an armada? They expected it to be destroyed in seconds. Instead, it tore through their fleet like a god of war. Its cannons fired energy so concentrated that even the Zalorian shields crumbled under its wrath. It moved faster than any battleship, dodging attacks with impossible precision. And worst of all, it learned. Every weapon fired at it, every strategy used against it. It adapted, evolving in real time, growing deadlier with each engagement. The Zalorians, who had never known fear, suddenly found themselves retreating. The war, once a slaughter, became a nightmare for them. The Ragnarok hunted their ships like a predator stalking prey. No matter how many reinforcements they sent, they were annihilated. Entire Zalorian battle groups vanished into the void, destroyed before they even knew what hit them. And then, one day, the Zalorian Emperor himself received a transmission. A single message, broadcast across the stars: run. The mighty Zalorian Empire, the unchallenged rulers of the galaxy, did something they had never done before. They begged for mercy. The Ragnarok had won, and humanity was just getting started. The Zalorian High Council stood in stunned silence. The Emperor, a towering figure of scaled gold and ceremonial armor, clenched his claws against the cold metal of his throne. The holographic transmission flickered in the grand war chamber. Again and again, the human message repeated: run. It wasn't a request. It was a warning. The Zalorians had spent centuries as the galaxy's apex predators. They had crushed empires, wiped out rebellious species, and never known fear. But now, the unthinkable had happened. A single warship, a human warship, had carved through their fleets like a blade through flesh. The Ragnarok. It was not a legend, nor a rumor. It was a nightmare made real. Tell me, the Emperor's voice was quiet, but deadly. How is this possible? The High Commander, a hardened veteran with more victories than any living Zalorian, swallowed hard. They are relentless, Your Excellency. Their technology, it's not superior, but it is adaptive. They fight as though they have nothing to lose. The Emperor narrowed his reptilian eyes. Because they don't. The invasion of Earth had been meant to be swift, merciless. Instead, it had dragged on into an unwinnable war. The humans had learned from every attack, turned their weaknesses into strengths, and stolen Zalorian technology right from the wreckage of their own warships. Then, they had built the Ragnarok, a ship that never fought the same way twice. A ship that destroyed 3 dreadnoughts in a single battle. A ship that chased Zalorian war fleets into the abyss and left nothing but wreckage behind. They have struck at the heart of our armadas, our supply lines, our command centers, the High Commander admitted. We cannot predict their attacks. We cannot stop them. And, Your Excellency, they are coming. The Emperor's claws scraped against his throne. For what? The commander hesitated. Then, with a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Vengeance." A chilling silence spread across the war chamber. The Zalorians had conquered countless worlds, but they had never truly broken a species' will. Even the most stubborn civilizations eventually surrendered. But humanity? They didn't just want survival, they wanted payback. A sharp chime rang through the chamber, a transmission from the outermost sector. The Emperor gestured, and the hologram flickered to life. A frantic Zalorian officer appeared, battle-scarred and panting. "Your Excellency!" he gasped. "They found us!" The Emperor's blood ran cold. Who? The humans? The officer's eyes darted behind him, scanning the void of space as if something monstrous lurked just beyond sight. "No," he whispered. "The Ragnarok." Then the transmission cut to static. The warship had come, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Ragnarok didn't arrive like a normal warship. It didn't emerge from hyperspace with a grand declaration. It didn't announce itself with threats or demands. It appeared. One moment, the Zalorian outpost hung in the silent void, its patrol fleets circling lazily, confident in their security. The next, they were burning. The first ship to be hit, a Zalorian battleship, twice the size of the Ragnarok, never had a chance. A single beam of searing white plasma cut through its shields, hull, and core in a fraction of a second. No alarms, no warnings, just instant annihilation. The explosion lit up the void like a dying star, and in its wake, Ragnarok emerged. Midnight black, covered in scars of stolen alien metal, moving faster than anything the Zalorians had ever seen. A hunter in the dark. The Zalorian outpost scrambled to respond. Fighters screamed through the void. Dreadnoughts turned their massive cannons, and command ships sent desperate orders. But the Ragnarok was already in their midst. The humans had learned. Zalorian ships were built for dominance, not for war. Their battleships were slow, arrogant, over-reliant on brute force. Their strategies were meant for crushing resistance, not surviving an apex predator. Ragnarok was smaller, smarter, faster. It darted between their lines, weapons adjusting with every shot, adapting in real time. Its cannons knew where shields were weakest. Its missiles slipped through gaps in enemy formations like they were alive. The Zalorians were used to being feared. Now they were prey. One by one, their warships turned into fireballs. Their station's shields flickered and failed. The Ragnarok never stopped moving, never stopped killing. Inside the command center, High Overseer Vekor watched his forces die in silence. His trembling claws hovered over the controls, his officers screaming at him for orders. But there was nothing to say. This wasn't a battle. It was an execution. A final transmission crackled through the station's failing systems. A human voice. "How does it feel?" The overseer's throat tightened. "How does it feel?" the voice repeated. "To be the ones who are afraid." A pause. A deep breath. Then, "You should have never come to Earth." The transmission cut. Then the Ragnarok fired. A single shot. It didn't just destroy the outpost. It erased it. Vekor's world became light, heat, fire, and then nothing. The Zalorian Empire had many colonies, many fleets, and many warlords. But when word of the Ragnarok massacre reached the imperial capital, a fear unlike anything in their history spread like wildfire. For the first time in Zalorian history, battle fleets refused to deploy. Officers resigned in droves. Some even deserted. They knew what was coming. The Ragnarok was out there, and it wasn't finished yet. The Zalorian High Command had abandoned the illusion of control. The war had shifted. It was no longer a conquest, no longer a battle for territory, resources, or even survival. It was a hunt, and they were the prey. Across the Empire, entire fleets were going dark. Stations, colonies, and supply lines wiped from existence before they could even send distress signals. No wreckage, no survivors, only the whispers of what had come for them. The Ragnarok. The few Zalorian captains who survived did not speak of strategy or counterattacks. They spoke of the void, of a shadow that moved like death itself, of a ship that could not be tracked, could not be predicted, could not be stopped. Some even claimed that it was no longer just a warship, that it had become something more, a force of vengeance, a specter of terror. And then, the final blow fell. The Battle of Zalor Prime, the Zalorian homeworld, the heart of their empire, their capital, their pride, their throne. It was the most heavily defended planet in the known galaxy. A fleet of 300 warships guarded it. Planetary shields strong enough to withstand the force of a dying sun surrounded it. Elite warriors waited on the surface, prepared for an invasion that would never come. Because Ragnarok didn't invade, it annihilated. The attack came in silence. No fleet, no armies, no diplomacy. Just a shadow in the void. The planetary defense grid detected a disturbance, a sensor glitch, they thought, a malfunction. Then, the sky burned. The Ragnarok emerged from nowhere, moving too fast, too erratic for even the most advanced targeting systems to lock onto it. Before the Zalorian commanders could react, their orbital defenses went dark. Their planetary shields, untouched for centuries, flickered, and then, for the first time in Zalorian history, failed. The capital fleet scrambled, but it was already too late. The Ragnarok didn't fight fair. It struck from every angle at once, moving like a phantom, never staying in one place long enough to be hit. One by one, Zalorian dreadnoughts fell. The Emperor himself watched in horror as his mighty empire collapsed before his eyes as the Ragnarok descended. And then, the final message, broadcasted on every Zalorian frequency, a human voice, calm, cold, unforgiving. Your reign ends today. Then, fire. The Ragnarok's main cannon, charged with all the stolen power of the Zalorian fleet, fired one final shot. The capital city, the very heart of Zalorian rule, ceased to exist. No slow destruction, no drawn-out suffering, just light. Then, darkness. The Zalorian Empire, the great terror of the galaxy, the unchallenged conquerors of countless worlds, was no more. And humanity? They had won. But the Ragnarok was not done. Because somewhere, beyond the ruins, beyond the ashes, beyond the wreckage of an empire that had once enslaved the stars, more threats waited. More monsters lurked in the void, and humanity was ready. The galaxy would never make the mistake of underestimating Earth again. Because now, they knew. They were not the apex predators. Humans were, and thus, the legend of the Ragnarok was born. The war was over. The Zalorian Empire, once the most feared force in the galaxy, was nothing but dust and whispers. Their fleets lay in ruins. Their homeworld was a smoldering husk. The few survivors scattered into the void, hunted down by those they had once oppressed. And yet, humanity did not celebrate. Because even in victory, they knew this was only the beginning. The Ragnarok had been born from necessity, forged in the fires of desperation. It had become more than a warship. It was a symbol, a warning, a specter that haunted the stars. But the galaxy was vast, and the Zilorians had not been the only ones watching. On the farthest edge of known space, in the uncharted void, something stirred. Deep within the remains of a dead system, hidden within the wreckage of ancient civilizations long forgotten, a signal pulsed. Faint, distant. And then it was answered. Far beyond human understanding, in the cold emptiness where no life should have existed, something woke up. It had no name, no empire, no fleet, only hunger. It had waited in the shadows of time, watching, patient. It had seen species rise and fall, consume and be consumed. The Zilorians had been unworthy. They had ruled through arrogance and fear, but they had never truly understood war. But now there was something new, something worthy, the Ragnarok. It had torn through the Zilorians like a storm of fire. It had defied every law of conquest, every rule of power. It had evolved, adapted, thrived, just like they had. And now they would see if humanity could survive. The signal pulsed again, not a warning, an invitation. Across the void, on a quiet blue planet orbiting a yellow sun, the last remnants of Earth's governments monitored deep space transmissions. They had been listening, waiting for any sign that the war was truly over. Then, the alert sounded. A single untranslated message. It contained no threats, no declarations of war, no promises of peace. Just 3 words, spoken in a language no human had ever heard. And yet, they understood it perfectly. Come and fight. The Ragnarok's engines flared to life. Humanity had been underestimated once. It would not happen again. And as the warship vanished into the endless dark, heading toward the unknown, one thing was certain. The hunt was not over. It had only just begun.